Hello Kojima2 Killian here, and today let's talk Bioshock Infinite. The game was released in 2013 by 2K and Irrational Games. It's the third in its series, with the first two being massive hits. The protagonist in the game is Booker DeWitt, a man on his way to Columbia, a floating city in the sky, which is ruled over by Zachary Comstock, also known as the Prophet. The city is very nationalistic. Even though Columbia has seceded from the United States, they see themselves as true Americans. Although initially it seems a utopia of sorts, there exists another tier to their society, made up of slave labour in the form of black servants and immigrant Irish workers who are treated as second-class citizens. In this video I'll be looking at the pros and cons of the game. Let's start with the bad stuff first. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the in-game abilities called Vigors. Much like the plasmids in the first two games, they can be used to do different things depending on which one you choose and whether you have the salts or energy required to cast them. They overlap massively in this game, as the majority of them are used as stuns that all last roughly the same duration of time. The only unique one is Return to Sender, which creates a barrier that absorbs projectile damage. The Possession Vigor, although useful, is extremely broken, as you are unable to damage the possessed enemy/mechanism until it wears off, which basically turns it into a form of stunned vigor, something they have more than enough of already. Secondly is Booker DeWitt's inability to carry more than 2 weapons at a time. This comes at a massive disadvantage to the player, as ammunition is rapidly spent, especially after you reach the halfway point when enemies like Lady Comstock become so difficult to kill they suck bullets up like a sponge. This, along with the fact that you are unable to purchase weapons in the vendors' machines and only purchase upgrades for the guns, means that the player more or less has to stick with the same 2 guns for the whole game, as upgrades are like a lucky dip in which you don't know when said gun will appear next in the game. Lastly, let's talk about the most pretentious design choice in the game, the inability to make meaningful choices. After rescuing Elizabeth from the tower, you soon meet the Lutesses, who offer Elizabeth the choice of choosing a pendant with a bird or a cage. The player is left wondering what the choice may put in motion and whether one is better than the other, and if there's some kind of hidden meaning behind the choices that could change the course of the game. Also, that it would impact the plot development. But no, it turns out to be just an aesthetic that has no value to the story at all, which really sets the player astray. Now I'm going to highlight some of the good points about the game, stuff that really catches the eye and makes it a worthwhile game to get. When I say capture the eye, I'm talking about the level design. Like the failed underwater city of Rapture before, Columbia is stunning to look at. A vibrant colour palette ignites the screen, detailed with beautiful architecture and distant vistas. It's too ambitious for the Xbox and PlayStation, as the game's graphics proved tough for the old consoles to keep up with. Columbia is best traversed with mouse and keyboard, and it does not disappoint from start to finish. Then the next element of the game that surely gets you hooked is quite literally a hook. The game's melee weapon is the Skyhook, which granted looks like an ice cream scoop, but it sure as hell does a lot of damage. The executions with the Skyhook are both brutal but enjoyable, and it makes the player want to try them all. It can also be used to traverse the map using the Sky Rail, Columbia's version of the railroad. The combination of the melee executions combined with the Sky Rail also adds to the combat and allowing you to perform sky assassinations. The Skyhook is definitely a great addition to the Bioshock universe, and the player have great enjoyment playing with it. In conclusion, Bioshock Infinite was a good game, but it could have been so much better and had so much potential. In fixing the 2-gun rule and varying the vigors more, even adding some meaningful choices to the game, it could have been such a bigger hit. That is my critique of Bioshock Infinite. Thank you for listening.